All right, so this is the next project that we're working on. I called it Project 6. It's going to be 2D again, so make sure you use these 2D defaults because it makes things a lot easier as we go into here. So I'm going to create this project and talk about what we're going to do. We are going to be building an animation out of sprite sheets. And what sprite sheets are these images here. Let's see if I open this thing up. It's going to show you. So this image, it's one PNG that has all the different frames of our animation, basically like a flip book, and they're all built into one, rectangular PNG that we've got here. And so using our glitch assets, there's a ton of sprite sheets that are in there, and we're gonna use those today. I'll show you how to take this series of images and make an animation out of it. So that's what we are going to do today. I am going to get back into Unity. I'm going to click on my project tab. We've got some other ones going here, but I'm going to click on this project tab right now, and I will drag in the sprite sheet just like we would any other image. A couple things we got to do is get rid of this blue color right away. And there we go. So with my scroll wheel, I'm scrolling out here, moving it around, and I'm going to drag this image in. And so if we go to our game, we see that it's all the individual frames, which is not necessarily what we want to do because we want to chop this thing up into an animation. So I'm going to delete this thing out of here. I just right-clicked and deleted out of our hierarchy. And I'm going to come down here to our assets window and just click on it once, and we're going to get some properties of it over here. And this is where we get to do some cool stuff. So the sprite mode is set to single, meaning there's one image in the whole PNG. We're going to change that to multiple, which is nice. And then we're going to go to Sprite Editor. So right over here, there is the Sprite Editor. We're going to pop that open. And it's going to ask us, do we want to apply these settings? Sure we do. And we get this screen right here, which looks very similar to what we saw before. It's all of our individual frames. And there is this really powerful thing here called slice. And we can do, and what it's going to do is it's going to figure out where each of the frames are in this image and then chop it up and make frames out of it. So if we leave this type as automatic and hit slice, it's really hard to see. I don't know if it's coming through, but on your screen you might be able to see it. There is white rectangles around each of these frames. One of the things that's a little bit odd is this automatic slicing. Like if you look at this one right here, it's a kind of a tall, skinny rectangle, whereas this one is sort of almost more of a square because he's taking up more space with his arms and his legs. And that kind of makes a weird animation because the sizes are always changing. So I'm going to change this type, and we can, actually, let's just see what happens here. All right, let's hit apply. Just show you what happens. So now that we've applied this thing, and we drag this into our scene, it's going to ask us to create an animation. We'll just call it guy. I don't know. And I'm going to scale. So I have this tool selected up here, and I'm just going to scale this thing up so that we can actually see it. And then when I hit play, he's going to animate. Right? So it's going to loop, and it's going to play that animation over and over again, which is kind of cool. One thing that I do want to go back to, I want to go back to the slicing of this thing. I'm going to click on this image here and go to the Sprite Editor. And if I go to slice, instead of automatic, if I do grid by cell count, we can say how many columns are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. Slice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. Oop, not 51. 5. And then rows are 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 as well. And then we slice it that way. And what that does is it makes perfect rectangles around the whole thing. And so if your character, your animation, is centered in each of these grids, then this makes it look a lot nicer. So if I apply that and we hit play, we may not have so much of this shifting back and forth. Yeah, see how he's standing on his one foot this time? And in the other mode where we let it do automatic slicing, he wasn't standing on this foot. This foot was kind of sliding around. So depending on how the artist creates the sprite sheets or how they're packaged together, you may want to choose one method over the other. But that's how we do it. And we do have each of the individual frames here. So if you had a sprite sheet that may not necessarily have been an animation, you can still drag an individual frame out into your scene if you want to. Let's delete that out of there. But a lot of times they might pack sprites into a sprite sheet just for compression reasons and ease of throwing it on the GPU. So you may have a sprite sheet that's not necessarily an animation, but you would chop it up the same way, and then you could expand it this way and drag out your individual frames. So yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the concept of what's happening. I guess I can show you one more thing. I'm going to go to Window and Animation and go to Animator. And with our little guy selected here, this is an animation state machine sort of thing. So we have our guy here moving, and then if I go to the animator tab, you can see what animation it's playing. So we could have a whole bunch of animations here, like running, jumping, walking, idle, falling over or whatever, and we would kind of stitch all of these things together. And that's a tutorial for another day, but that's how we would do it. We would bring in different animations for the different actions, and then we would transition from one animation to the next using these arrows. But like I said, that's another tutorial that we can do later. But that's it. I mean, this is Spritesheet animations, super simple. Drag it in, chop it up, throw it in there. You're good to go.